In July of 1725, an Austrian imperial official sat down and wrote a formal government report about a vampire. Not a legend, not a campfire story. An actual, signed, filed piece of Habsburg paperwork. And it's a real reason the word vampire exists in English at all. Stick with me, because we're going to open that actual report, walk through the real village death cluster that triggered it, explain what a forensic pathologist now knows was really happening inside that grave, and then follow the exact same pattern as it resurfaces, more than a century later, on the other side of the Atlantic. The village was Kisiljevo, in a Serbian frontier region newly under Habsburg control. A peasant named Petar Blagojevic, recorded by the Austrians as Petar Blagojevich, died there in early 1725. Within 8 days, 9 of his neighbors were dead too, each felled by a short, violent illness lasting barely 24 hours. And before they died, several of them said the same thing, that Blagojevic had come to them in the night and strangled them in their sleep. His own widow said he had visited her, asking for his shoes, and fled the village out of fear. The village didn't have a word for a disease cluster. They had a name for this instead. Terrified, the villagers demanded the grave be opened, and by law, that required an imperial official to witness it. That official was Ernst Frombald, and his report survives. He describes finding the body, about 10 weeks after burial, essentially undecomposed. Old skin and nails had sloughed away, with what looked like fresh skin and nails underneath. Hair and beard appeared to have kept growing, and there was blood visible at the mouth. To the villagers watching, this wasn't ambiguous. This was proof. They drove a stake through the body, and Frombald wrote down exactly what he saw, without ever calling it fake. Here's what we now know Frombald was actually looking at. Forensic science recognizes every one of those signs as ordinary decomposition. Gas from gut bacteria bloats a body and pushes trapped blood toward the skin, which can look like a well-fed, undecayed corpse instead of a decaying one. Dehydration shrinks the skin around the fingers, scalp, and jaw, so nails and hair don't actually grow after death. They just look longer because the tissue around them has pulled back. And that blood at the mouth is purge fluid, a natural byproduct of internal decomposition finding an exit. Folklorist Paul Barber, who spent years cross-referencing vampire reports against forensic pathology, found this pattern held almost without exception. The evidence for vampirism was, again and again, just a body decomposing exactly the way bodies do. But the biology only explains the corpse. It doesn't explain why 9 people died and blamed the same man. That part is psychology. A cluster of unexplained deaths in a world with no germ theory is genuinely terrifying. And once one dying person names a cause, on their deathbed, in front of witnesses, that explanation spreads through a frightened community the way a rumor spreads through any of us. Through suggestion, through imitation, through people who are already sick and afraid, finding a story that finally makes sense of it. 7 years later, an even bigger version of the same pattern hit the village of Medjeva, the Arnold Paole case. And this time, the Austrian army sent military surgeons to investigate. Their report, Visum et Repertum, was reprinted in over 100 newspapers between Vienna and London within months. That's how a Serbian word for a folk monster ended up in English by the early 1730s, carried not by a novelist, but by government paperwork and the newspapers that copied it. The panics kept recurring for decades until Empress Maria Theresa sent her own physician, Gerard van Swieten, to investigate directly. His conclusion was blunt: natural decomposition, dressed up by fear and ignorance. In 1755, an imperial decree made grave desecration a punishable crime, even when it was done to kill a vampire. And the officially sanctioned panics largely stopped. But the underlying pattern didn't disappear. It resurfaced in New England, of all places, more than a century later, this time driven by tuberculosis, a disease doctors didn't fully understand yet, either. Families exhumed relatives and burned their organs, hoping to stop the dead from consuming the living. In the best documented case, Mercy Brown was exhumed in Rhode Island in 1892. Her heart burned on a rock, its ashes mixed into a tonic for her dying brother. 2 centuries, 2 continents, 2 diseases nobody understood yet. And the same instinct, every time. Find a name for the thing that's killing people you love. The vampire was never the lie. It was the best explanation a frightened village had, written down exactly as they saw it.